Please.
You're up, Commissioner.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. There are no changes to the agenda.
No,
go ahead.
I was here once.
It's nice to see you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We do not have any indigent business, so let's go ahead and discussion pertaining to potential ARPA funds.
Mr. Isham, come on up.
Yep.
Please introduce yourself for the record.
Jeff Eisman, Azalea Sports Ventures, and Aegon Sports and Entertainment.
All right. Okay.
No, I'll give a recap and then you can bring us up to speed. How's that?
Sounds great.
About a year ago, Commissioner Tuvey thought that Pocatello would be well suited if we had a multi-use sports stadium. And he reached out to Mr. Isom, who is a member of the, what are you, Jeff?
Pioneer
League,
League, yes.
and began discussions about a potential baseball stadium here in Pocatello with a potential expansion team from the Pioneer League. There's been discussions back and forth for a while, and I think we're at a point now where we can have a serious discussion about potentially using some ARPA funds to do something with that. So at this point in time, I'll turn time over to Jeff, and you can give us a little history, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Conversation started probably July of 21.
21. And I started on this to really get going. We were at the horse track, and Ernie leaned over to me and said, "It'd be cool to have a baseball field, huh?" I said, "Well, I'll get right on that." And that was like 4 years ago. And so COVID and all this, and then, it was 21 and when we were able to link up and get started.
So I had met Commissioner Tuvey back in July. We started with a phone conversation, planned a trip. I came out here. I'm one of the principals with the Boise Hawks franchise, and as we began the dialogue, I was inquiring internally at the league about Pocatello, while outside of the league, calls were coming in regarding the opportunities in the Pioneer League. So it was kind of serendipitous to some degree. As I looked at this, I thought the bigger challenge here was going to be getting a territorial approval from Idaho Falls, not knowing where that extended to, but we were able to work through that in short order. The league from a geographical location, I found this to be one of the better spots, very central to lots of the different clubs around the league, and would create a lot of central rivalries and everything else. And as we look here, although Idaho State University has a varied athletic department with teams that are participating in lots of different sports, there isn't a professional sports environment in the marketplace that brings the community together. And when you're looking at quality of life issues and you're looking at things that you can offer to people, and especially for something that can run from the months of May through September, I mean, that's a big chunk of the calendar where the weather's beautiful here and everything else, and we're trying to bring back professional sports to this marketplace became one of my goals. And we started in earnest looking at a couple different sites, I think, at one point or another, and we've kind of identified the where and the how, and I think we've gotten down to a point where we can figure out hopefully how to make this work.
Okay. And so a few months ago, I went out to Augusta, Georgia, to a stadium that Mr. Isham built a few years ago, and toured that facility as well as the areas surrounding it, and it was very impressive. It was very nice. And Jeff, you want to talk about that, just a little bit about that stadium and what you did there?
Sure. So I spent the better part of 10 years of my life, easy, working on a project that I was similarly involved in, and that was in the Augusta, Georgia Aiken, Augusta, MSA. And my group, we owned the Augusta Green Jackets, which are now Atlanta Braves single A affiliate, and it needed a new home. And I was involved in the transition of the club for ownership on now 3 occasions, one where I was divested of it, but the other 2 where I was involved in, because I believed in a place that I thought could do great things if it was given the right environment to do it. Faced every hurdle known to man, lawsuits, everything that you could throw at a project got thrown at this thing, but it prevailed, and we built a $43 million state-of-the-art facility that won numerous national awards for Stadium of the Year, including in USA Today. It changed the game in the Augusta Metro. They have a waterfront development that was basically the quarterback of the project. It was $180 million worth of private development that basically funded that $43 million for the backstopping the debt service on the bonds that the municipality, North Augusta, entered into, coupled with the lease that the club had. It opened in 2018. The team has had record success, leads the league in attendance. This was a franchise that when we were going through it, people were like, I don't know why they need to build a new stadium. They can't draw anybody to the old one. But the problem is the old one is from a different time, a different place, and you know, families and people, they're looking for a very different experience than what was maybe erected in the 70s or the early 80s. And if you haven't continued to invest in those facilities, it tends to get sour, and you end up having struggles as a club. What was appealing here is the fact that we were starting with a fresh canvas, and that and knowing what worked in North Augusta, having that opportunity to create that destination. Although ours was built on a waterfront, or riverfront, I should say, you still have intangibles here that don't exist. You do not have a central entertainment district for this community where you can have people live, work, and play. Place where they can dine, where they can shop, where they can work, where they can go catch live outdoor entertainment. And it's literally adjacent to the amphitheater that's literally just mere blocks away. So looking at that was kind of the model that I know that initially talked to Commissioner Tovey about, which was, you know, how do we create this as a destination? It shouldn't just be a facility surrounded by a sea of, you know, asphalt parking lots. That's a relic from a different era. You have an opportunity here to do something really unique that can show a lot of communities that are within a 150-mile radius, 200-mile radius, how you guys are doing things that are a little bit more cutting edge than what they're doing up there, and that includes the Idaho Falls and the Ogdens and the Salt Lakes, and to some degree even the Boise's and the other cities that you contrast and compare against.
Also, would you speak a little bit to your history with the Cal Ripken and some of the other things you've done in the industry?
I have been working in professional sports in one degree or another since 1990. I started in college. I interned at the what is now the Washington Wizards in the NBA. They were the Washington Bullets. I worked there. They were just as bad then as they are now. But I spent 3 years working there while I was in school. When I graduated, I moved out west. I did another 2 years interning. Nobody's done more unpaid internships than me, I think, but I did 2 more years with the San Diego Chargers. And from there, I was hired in Las Vegas to work at a professional hockey team and the AAA baseball team there. And that was really my first paid job. Started off selling tickets, and really kind of understood that there was kind of an art form to it, and you had to bring passion, because you're not going to get people excited about what you do or coming to an event if you don't believe in it yourself. And so for some reason, 115 degrees, sitting on metal bleachers in Las Vegas. I don't know why, but somehow people took that leap of faith with me, and we were growing attendance, and the club was growing. We, probably raised attendance probably 25-30% over the 5-6 years that I was there. I got recruited away by Cal Ripken Jr. I'm from Maryland, so when I got a phone call from Cal Ripken Jr., it was kind of it was kind of like a religious moment, and I felt like I had a civic responsibility. So and I was so honored. So I was given the opportunity to do a startup in Aberdeen, Maryland. Aberdeen, Maryland is where Cal Ripken Jr. is from, Baseball Hall of Famer. It's a city of 14,000 people. The county's larger, but the county's very diverse. And when you start really breaking it down, you start finding out that really I got about 100,000 people in a radius that I got to drive to get to this ballpark. It had 6,400 seats. I think I was hired because I made promises that I had to go keep. And I had a game plan for selling out a 6,400 seat stadium, but I also had 4.5 months to sell out that stadium. And it had never been done before. The only other club that had sold out every single game at that point that it had played was in Dayton. But I was involved in Dayton because my boss, who hired me in Las Vegas, was running Dayton. And I was involved in their startup. And so I had a little bit of swagger that I could get this done because I had, Cal Ripken Jr.'s name behind it in his hometown. So I figured the trust factor was going to be there. And not only did we sell out every single game that we played, we had a wait list for season tickets of over 1,200 people. We sold out every single game for 10 straight years in a market that shouldn't have even had professional baseball. So from there, that's how I got involved in Augusta and some other clubs, and was involved in a lot of other Cal's initiatives and businesses. But my passion has always been on the professional side of the business and operating facilities and teams, and a little less on the amateur aspects of the game, which were near and dear to the Ripken family.
The team in Vegas, the AAA team, was that the 51s?
That was, they were the Stars when I started there, became the 51s while I was there, and now they're the Aviators.
There's a guy yesterday that had 51s hat on. Which they're not the 51s anymore, right?
No,
Yeah.
no. When they moved to they have a brand new ballpark in downtown Summerlin, and it's beautiful. I was just there a couple months ago, but they switched over and changed everything about themselves.
So the proposal that you and I have kind of talked about a little bit is the county would build a stadium, and your team, the Pioneer League team, would have an expansion team here, and we would have a 20-year commitment from you guys to have professional baseball here in Pocatello, correct?
That is correct.
And the stadium that we've been talking about is approximately $20 million to build. What's the seating capacity?
We're talking about fixed seats somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,500 physical fixed seats. That's talking if you flip the ballpark upside down and shook it, nothing was falling out. That doesn't mean there won't be group areas and standing room areas and drink rail and those kinds of things where you can hold capacity-wise much higher than that. But that's physical seats between, the dugouts.
Okay. And then one of the things that we talked about is the county would own it, but how would you're proposing an operational strategy similar to what you did in Augusta? Would you outline that for us?
Yes. Whenever you're putting a public building on, you're creating one, obviously you have to look at the ancillary cost of the operation of that building. And, like any building that you all have built or owned, somebody's going through the maintenance budget every year and going, oh, yeah, we're probably going to need this, and we're going to need this, and we're going to need to do that. Try to make this a lot easier because this is a PPP in that respect, which is we're going to be at the building. We're going to be there 365. There are things that we should be doing that you should not have to be doing. Most of the stuff that's going into this building are going to be under long-term warranties. You're warranting, HVAC systems and elevators or whatever's going into it. what we've done in North Augusta and elsewhere is we extend those warranties, and then we're maintaining those warranties. We're taking care of the routine maintenance. We shouldn't have many things that go awry in that building, and try to make this a non-expense item for the community.
Is at one point, the discussion was a multi-use, just not baseball. I mean, baseball is the primary function of it, but there's a lot of other things. Are you still thinking in that aspect of?
100%. It's almost a shame. Like I don't want to call it a baseball stadium, because that's just one aspect of what this building can do. The baseball team will be a tenant, a host inside this building, but this is an outdoor event center. I see things like, opportunity for additional types of concerts that, maybe there's some overflow, festivals that would go on there, all kinds of sports. The facility would be designed so that it can host soccer, that it can host rugby, that it can host lacrosse, that it can host all kinds of rectangle sports in addition, including football. It might not be one of the larger venues for high school football in the state, but nonetheless, it could have some appeal for the lower classifications to host some games and things along those lines. This is a community asset, but it also should be a place where people can congregate. It's envisioned that it'll have an indoor component to this that can serve as a large-scale banquet hall that can hold like 400 people and host events year-round. Kind of serve as like a mini expo center. This is really designed to be the ultimate outdoor event space with indoor components as part of it. And it allows the opportunity not only to bring professional baseball into the marketplace, but also explore the other professional sports that come of age in the 21st century. Things that were not necessarily contemplated 15, 20 years ago. I mean, right now, the World Cup's going on, and there are people across the country that are paying more and more attention to it. From my understanding, the eyeballs to watch Team USA keep growing. They're higher than they've been. And not that I'm a student of that per se, but you can't help but look at the demography and say, okay, soccer has a foothold here, especially in the state and in the Northwest. And we should be looking at those things. We should be looking at those shared uses. The baseball team would only be playing in there from, May to September. And even then, they're on the road a bunch. They're on the road half that time. So our job is to make sure that building's not dark and try to bring as much programming into it as we possibly can. And be good citizens in the process. We don't want to, sit here, we're not shooting off fireworks in people's backyards every 5 minutes or anything along those lines.
So how many home games they average a year?
It is 50 home dates now, but there's reason to believe that will expand and grow.
Okay. So I'm getting a picture here, but the cost of the stadium and parts of this, I think, is still executive session type stuff, and we're not set to go into executive session. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the amounts of monies that we're talking about and what the county's commitments are. So that's important to me.
Do you want to talk general numbers on that, or do you want to wait for an executive session for that? What would you like to do?
I think a general number of what the stadium would cost and a general number of kind of what the county's commitment would be. That's what I think we can put out there right now, that if we have other partners that they're not here, we haven't got commitments from. And that's what I want people to know. We haven't gotten commitments from anybody.
Right.
This is a starting point for this with the county.
What we've talked about, and chime in here, Jeff, what we've talked about is, like I said, about a $20 million build for the stadium, and the county using up to $8 million of the ARPA funds to help fund that. A lot of the funding would come from the 20-year lease from the team to help some of the long-term financing of that. Contract. Yes.
We contract, we don't lease, we contract.
Yeah, that would be a contract, yes.
Contract, thank you.
And then the rest would be some stadium naming rights, some other things.
Yes.
What other funding sources have we talked about?
Yeah, so the rent, what I was looking to do was pledge $150,000 a year in base rent and another $150,000 a year of naming rights, of which is unsold at the moment. But basically, I'm obligating the team, the business, on $300,000 a year. I just used those two metrics because I thought those would be the most likely. The base rent would be fixed, period.
Right.
And the naming rights would be fixed too, but I'm just using that in over 20 years. That's $6 million towards this project, which also would be amongst the higher rents in baseball. So, but I wanted to come here with my best foot forward. And I didn't want to play games and sit here and say, oh, how cheap can I get a lease for? Which if you were to pull, you could probably grab some public leases around the leagues or around other sports, and you will find that for a facility of this cost, this is that I'm really am serious about delivering, and it's obligated myself to something, substantial.
Yeah. And we've had talks with other entities, which we'll save that for a later date, but there's some additional funds coming in from some other entities that will help close the gap between the rent and what we're talking about, so.
And our only outlay would be ARPA money. That's it.
That's what we're looking at, yes.
Then we don't, as part of your contract to provide a team, you also provide the daily operational maintenance. The facility would be on the team that is operating the facilities. The county is not, we're not doing it.
Correct. So, that's where we're at.
Okay. And I know that you've all talked about it for a while and stuff. There's some, I have to digest parts of this myself. But I would love to have a stadium in our area. I look at Idaho Falls and the facility that they're just opening. They had a grand opening yesterday. And Bannock County and Pocatello and this area, it's time to grow. It's time to step forward. As we've talked about ARPA funds, we want projects that have a long-lasting effect instead of a short-term effect. And I would love to see people come down the interstate and not only see the lights of the temple on that hillside, but also the lights of a ball stadium. And then I guess one of the other questions is like up in Idaho Falls, I know that they've had a few of the high school tournaments up there and different things. Is that in your goals and projections and sites?
We host at Memorial Stadium in Boise, which, by the way, this facility would, this facility, you guys would have, this would be the nicest venue in the state of Idaho for professional baseball, period. Probably for professional sports in the state of Idaho, for that matter. And the goal here would be not only bringing those kinds of things in here, but bringing in friendly events, meaning it could be the National Women's Soccer League exhibition games, so that we tie back in with the Idaho State University women's soccer program. It's when you have amateur sport programming and you're looking to bring sports tourism to town through tournaments, that you have a signature field that can host baseball, that can host football, that can host soccer, that can host lacrosse. It's getting active in a lot of multi-sports and looking at what's traveling, what opportunities can come through here. There's USL soccer that, we got Salt Lake down the road. You grab one of the other clubs regionally and host some friendlies here for that as well. It might even be, I think, Terrell, you pointed this out, it might be like something as simple and crazy as like the Savannah Bananas and they're traveling. We're going to be looking at hosting those kinds of events and keeping the building going, but as far as working with the high schools in this community and them being able to play games here, yes, that's what's envisioned here. I know that many of these schools probably already have their own venues, But why not move some of the bigger games here and bring the families out, or make an event of it on a Friday night?
Well, it really bothers me that the A3 state tournament is always in Oregon. The only time that they've had it in Idaho, it was up at the facility in Idaho Falls, and on a local Bannock County team won state. at that
So
time.
we wouldn't have to budget any ongoing operations, power, anything, no staffing?
All I would ask is, from a utility standpoint, is that this is a public building that we can serve on, treat it as a public building.
It's public utility, there's no tax
Yeah.
on the utility.
But yes, there'd be no routine maintenance. That doesn't mean, like, if there's a masonry issue or there's something structurally wrong, that's a different story. But if we're talking about, making sure that the HVAC's still working and keeping the upkeep of the facility and taking that burden off, absolutely. And if we're able to do things that are, economies of scale, where we have services that, hey, it's like, we can make it cheaper for some other activities that are maybe across the street or anything else that simplify things from a maintenance standpoint, I'm going to be employing people to operate that building 24/7. So there may be some other common uses where that could be valuable.
So looking at a team like this coming in, because we've had a lot of conversation, there is expansion going on in the Pioneer League. The team that just built the new stadium, the Rangers,
Glacier.
that just put it in, they just built about they reported 16 to 18 million in their newspaper. They built it, worked literally 24 hours a day, so I think they blew their budget a little bit.
It's amazing what they've accomplished. I was up there in July. I think I came here and then I drove up from here, actually. And what they've constructed, they broke ground after first frost. They literally were building from late September, and they opened in June. A concrete facility, double, 2 stories or 3-story building, privately financed, and I don't know how they did it, but they told me that if they bought all the materials so far out before all of the inflationary costs or supplies became harder to get, said if they had to have done it then, like this summer, if they had started, he said it would have been about $32 million. And they're also in construction. He has a commercial roofing company, national one. So he's very involved in construction and very savvy at that, so he could GC that project by himself.
So knowing the conversation, and I've had conversations with, it's Mike Chaparro.
Yeah.
It's the president of Pioneer League. There's not a guarantee that there's a team, but you build a new stadium, and it's a pretty good likelihood then that they're a Pioneer
I
League
spoke to
team will be
them
there.
yesterday because they wanted to understand where we were at, and we have baseball winter meetings are this upcoming weekend in San Diego. So when I leave Idaho at the end of the week, I'm headed there, and we're meeting again, and they want an update. But yes, I mean, they are apprised of where everything is at here, and they're prepared to honor their commitment, and I've told them that I've been unwavering all throughout all of this.
So it's not a build it and we hope they come. It's
You will have professional baseball back here.
okay.
What's your time frame for wanting to start playing?
My goal here, and again, some of this is how quickly everything comes about, but the league would like to start opening day in May of '24. So the good news is, yes, we can get, I don't think the construction's going to be terribly difficult. Obviously, we got, design and everything that we'd still have to go through, although we've done some initial designs. Still got to go through, you got to get, GC to come through and tell you how much this image on this piece of paper looks like it cost X, and it's coming back at this with when they price it, and then we got to figure out how we're dealing with that game at that time. But that's the process, and the hope would be that we'd have a formal groundbreaking here, as the weather starts to maybe get to the 25-degree mark.
Wait 2 days, it'll be
Right.
like 40.
So concessions, 100% yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we don't deal
Well,
with
I'm actually in favor of that.
Yes.
We believe in, if we're going to fail, then we're going to fail being 100% responsible for the failure. And that is, we want to control the fan experience so they have nobody to blame but us, and then make sure that there's nothing to blame us for. And sometimes when you bring in a third party, you bring in an outside food and beverage company, you're subject to how they estimate profit. And they estimate profit is how much is my COGS and labor costing me? So how much should I shortchange the number of people working today? What should I charge for our product? I'm more sensitive about that because although I'm a business person and I'm a capitalist, I also don't believe in shaking people by their ankles to make a project successful. I believe in this being something that benefits everybody, and I want people to have a great experience. And you're not going to get that by charging $20 for nachos.
So kind of the,
Her bringing people out of Boise and charging us. Yeah.
so kind of as as I'm winding down and leaving, as I've been going through this project and we started looking at this, it's something that I've read a lot of the history of the INL lately, and it started out as the Atomic Energy Research Area, and when the government selected, it was between us and Montana, and they ended up selecting Idaho, and there was a competition between Pocatello, Idaho Falls, and the city of Arco and Blackville, and there wasn't a road to the INL and the Naval Reactors Facility from Idaho Falls to the site. The road came through Blackfoot. The Navy was located here. That was the big gun facility that was out there. The Navy test range that was out there was going to become the Energy Commission. And Pocatello, in its arrogance, assumed that it would just come here. And Idaho Falls, because of a bunch of brilliant people, saw a possibility of what would come if they took a little risk and tried to make the impossible happen, actually secured the INL as their main offices and moved everything there without even having a road built to it. They ended up, as a county, paying to build the road from Idaho Falls to the site. And then they ended up getting the state to come in and take it over and kick it off. But it was the county investment and the business leaders that did it. And kind of the moral of the story is since 1947, when that was envisioned, they have pumped billions of dollars into Idaho Falls. When I was in high school, Pocatello was 10,000 people smaller than Boise and way bigger than Idaho Falls in that area. Twin Falls wasn't even on the map. Twin Falls and Idaho Falls have now eclipsed us. And so the whole thing it comes to with this project is we ask ourselves, if we want Pocatello to be a bedroom community now to Twin Falls and Idaho Falls, we don't do this. Or we figure out every single way we can to make this happen. Because these are the kind of projects that you have a little bit of faith and you see what happens. And as I talk to people of where I'm now also employed, and they're moving here as fast as they can. And there is no reason for them to come to Pocatello other than to drive through to go to Utah. And so if we want those people that are getting paid 6 figures plus to come to Pocatello and be an area that they want to be at, because they all hate the traffic in Idaho Falls. It is a longer drive to the site from Idaho Falls than to Pocatello. It's about 10 minutes shorter from Pocatello. So they all want to live here, but there's no amenities. And that was the first thing that they said. I saw several of them with Chuckers hats on. They all bought season tickets. They all have, the King Spuds now are coming in. Their hockey team is going to come in up there. They're excited, and these people moving from big labs and big areas in Pittsburgh and these areas, this is what they're doing. And so if we want to actually compete and be other than just a bedroom community for Idaho Falls, that's what we're going to do. And so I would highly suggest, I have 6 weeks left before I'm gone, but in my counsel and my stuff, I would say we need to do everything in our power to make this happen. Because if not, we just need to be complacent and understand the jobs will not come to Pocatello. They will go to Idaho Falls, and we all better just get ready to have good commuter cars and go shopping up there. So.
Well, I can't argue with any of that right now. Like I said, a lot of this is, I gotta digest.
Yep,
You're back here on the 9th,
yep.
and I would like that meeting to, that's where we make the decision.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for all your time.
See you later.
All right, Shanda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shanda Crystal, Purchasing Economic Analyst. I have just one item before the board, just I have an open discussion for the updates on the Safety and Assessment Center, and if there's anything we need to update the board on.
Nope, they have their board meeting again this Thursday, so,
This is Thursday. Oh, yeah.
so we'll see
Okay.
what they see and approve. I would guess that on Friday then, Friday, Saturday, we'll start hearing something back with either an acceptance or a counter for the offer that we had given.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle.
Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works Director. I don't know any famous people or not, but but it all sounds good. Today I just got for you. It's not really a contract. It's just for support services. It's as needed. They do not do any work unless I ask for it. It's just to be kind of tied in that if they'll get to notice if there's anything going wrong with the gas system electronically, and so they can be right there. It's just to kind of have them on the line that if we need them for any work. And that's work on the SCADA system for the gas system.
So I was just looking at their pay scales and stuff. You budgeted for this?
Yes.
So
Yes, we did, and we also looked at a few different firms to make sure that these are competitive, and we found that they're right in there with the competitive with anybody else. And it is a little bit of a specialty job, so there's not a lot out there that do it.
At the rate per hour, it could add up pretty quick. is all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yes, sir.
So you've got $10,000 on the front here, their cost estimate, that's what you've got in your budget for
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes, for the last few years, we've seen what that's gonna kind of be around, and that's why we've put the 10,000. We hope not to spend any of it, but it depends on what goes on. They do a lot of spreadsheets and different stuff, so they're keeping track of that whole system so that we have, with Idaho Power's agreement and with regulatory, that we have all that monthly data that's coming out of this system. So they keep up on that a little too, that's working.
So where we're gonna be running 2 engines this year up at the gas plant, do you anticipate?
I don't think it'll be an effect like to be more, because it's over all of it right now anyway, so.
The other engine's not gonna have
Yeah,
much.
most of this work that they do is if something electronically goes down with the whole system itself, so we don't perceive to have more expense because of 2 engines.
Okay. Okay. And then, are you expanding the gas wells this year? I can't remember.
So yes, we will be looking at the design work and implementing a few wells later this year.
So
in
as
South
you
Fork.
implement more wells, will that add more work compared to the
Not for
second
these
engine?
guys.
Okay. Right.
No, it'll
Okay.
just add more gas to make more power.
Okay. All right. I'm comfortable. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contract with Power Engineers as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, we have resolution 2022-92 approving tax cancellation request.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2022-92 tax cancellation request as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Next, we have for, oh, I'm sorry. Professional services contract and retainer as conflict counsel for indigent persons. Any comments, questions?
Who's that retainer for? I don't have it.
Stratton Lagus.
Oh, that's the month one. Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contract for Stratton Lagus as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. On the consent agenda, we have salary rate approval forms and commission report.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And with that being said, we are adjourned.